All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start developing some basic ideas of really great things that you can do for your picking hand, okay? So the first thing we're going to do here is we're just going to start learning how to pick, and I did mention this a little bit in one of the earlier ideas, but what I want to do is I just want to start picking a string, and I'm going to pick the 6th string, okay? And I'm also going to be palm muting that 6th string. Remember, I'm taking the karate chop part of my hand, I'm setting it right for where the bridge and the string meet, and again, you might need to work on that a little bit as well, although that isn't really a technique exercise for me to worry about right now. But it's certainly something you could do if you need to. But that's what I'm looking for, is that sound. And what I want to start thinking about is, as I'm doing this picking, am I moving from my fingers? Am I moving from my wrist? Or am I moving from my elbow? Now, there's no wrong way to do this, but you need to be aware of where that strength and that motion is coming from, because depending on how you're doing it, you might be more or less effective. Now, for me, it all depends on the speed that I'm going, okay? As I go faster, I tend to lock a little bit and start moving more like I'm turning this way. This is where I go. If I'm playing slower, it either comes from my fingers like this, or it'll kind of come from the elbow, but it's all different. And they're all, interchangeable as I play, but I just want you to be aware of that. So a couple other things to be aware of. Obviously, think about the style of guitar pick that you're using. Is it the right pick? Your stance of holding the guitar pick. Again, we're talking about a practice exercise, so I'm not doing, beginner basics right now, but be aware of those things, the way that you hold that guitar pick, the style of pick that you're using, the thickness of pick, the cut of the tip of the pick. All of those things can make a difference on how it feels and how it sounds and how effective it is for you. So, as I start doing this, I start trying to dial in that palm. Okay, and once I start dialing it in, then I start trying to think about how it feels as I play. Again, am I moving from the fingers? Am I moving from the wrist? Am I moving from the elbow? Well, I'm moving more from the wrist at this tempo. So I'm dialing in the sound. I'm dialing in how it feels. I'm dialing in how it sounds. Again, way more than how fast I can do this. That's what I'm dialing in. That's the first thing I need to be worrying about, is how does this guitar feel as I'm doing this? How does it sound? Okay, and try and dial that in a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing some exercises. So as I've dialed this in, the next thing I want to do is, again, pull in that metronome. And the exercise that I'm going to give you right now is what I refer to as the 2-minute drill. Now, I'm going to be using an online metronome for this. There's an online metronome that I found from iMusic School. That's what it's called. What I did was I typed in online metronome with timer, because that's what I wanted, was something with a timer. The Google metronome doesn't have a timer on it. So this is a 2-minute drill. So I want to set that metronome for 2 minutes, which I have it set for. Okay, and right now I've got this set at 120 beats per minute. Okay, so that's kind of my starting point for all these exercises, is 120 beats per minute. If you need to slow down a little bit or you need to speed up a little bit, that's perfectly fine, but that's kind of where I am. Okay, so 120 beats per minute. I've got the metronome set at, I've got the timer set for 2 minutes, and it's going to sound like this. Okay, so it sounds a little bit different than the Google metronome that I was using before. I also have the stress on the first beat set so you can hear that first beat, not that it really matters. And so what I'm going to do is, when I start this, it's going to sound like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do down picking with this metronome for 2 straight minutes. 2 minutes, okay? I don't want to fail. I don't want to quit early. If I have to quit early, I'm going too fast, or I'm not relaxing enough, because that's something that you'll learn as you keep trying to speed these things up, is that the speed at which you're going, you need to learn how to relax. Otherwise, you're going to get really tight, you're going to get tense, and then you're going to have to stop. So 120 is not my top speed, but I wanted to show you something that's not way too fast, but yet not incredibly too slow. Again, you need to figure out what's going to work best for you. If you try and do this exercise with me and it's not working for you because it's too fast, slow the metronome down. Throw the ego out, the guitaritis out the window, and find the speed that works for you. But we want to last for 2 minutes. What's a great tempo is a tempo that when you get about halfway through, when you get about a minute in, you can start feeling it, like really feeling it. But you're able to finish with 2 minutes, okay? If you finish 2 minutes and there's nothing, okay, then it's probably too slow for you. But also while you're doing this, make sure that you are focusing using your ear training, okay, that sort of theory fretboard thing that we were talking about with ear training, or if we want to put that in the real world perspective bucket, we can do that too. It doesn't matter. But I want to listen. Like I need to be lining up with that metronome. So let's try this together. So we're palm muting downward at this speed. I'm going to let one measure go by and then we're going to start. Here we go. Pay attention. Listen. Feel it. And relax. Relax the fingers. Relax your shoulder. Relax your neck. Figure out where you're picking from. Your fingers, your wrist, your elbow. Where's that motion coming from? Okay, that's a minute. We got one more minute to go here. Keep it up. Seconds. Keep it up. 15 seconds. That's it. Okay. So understand that even if you only had 15 minutes for exercises for that core practice, you can do a lot of stuff. Okay? If you're not just noodling, right? I mean, look at all the things that we've done so far. These would be great exercises. Now, I'm going to speed this up a little bit for just to show you an example. So I'm going to go to 150 here. Okay? It doesn't matter what speed you select, but you need to make sure that once you dial that in, now I'm doing 2 per click. Bump, 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 right? That's what I'm doing. We call those eighth notes. That's what I'm doing. So if you've got a different metronome that you're using, it doesn't need to accent on the first beat. Again, you can look at a clock. You don't need to use a metronome necessarily that has a timer. Although I found this one just because it's free and it's easy to use if you're around your computer when you practice. And if you're not, that's cool. Just use your watch or, you could do this and look at your watch. It's not a big deal. Or your phone or anything that you need. But anyway, that's a really great one to do is that 2-minute exercise. Now, we can also do that 2-minute exercise with alternate picking. Now, alternate picking, down-up picking, again, requires some dialing in of the sound, of the quality of the alternate pick. Which, again, if you've never done it before, you should study that for a while. Look for one of my videos in the membership group and learn about alternate picking or whatever it is you need to do. But same principle, you want to be picking down and up. You want it all to sound nice and even. Okay? You want it to be tight, and you want to have a good palm mute. Now, the slower you go, the more of a swing you're going to get from your wrist or your elbow. The faster you go, the the more it's going to lock, and again, you're going to get more of this kind of motion as you play. So alternate picking, learning about alternate picking, practicing alternate picking, that's another discussion. This is a practice routine, right? So we're taking that alternate picking now, and we're going to add it. So if we think about this, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow that down a little bit. Let's go back to 120. Okay, and let me just show you. Dun 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 dun. 2 per click. Now, that's 120. Now, to be honest with you, if I was playing at 120, I really wouldn't play alternate picking because it's too slow for me to be doing alternate picking. I'd definitely be doing down picking at that time. Okay? But again, you've got to dial this in and figure it out. So for me to go, it just feels very awkward because it's like walking really slow. Okay? But if I take this and I bump it up, let's say I go to 140. Okay? Okay, that starts feeling a little more reasonable to me. Okay? Now again, this isn't about me, it's about you. I'm just saying, if you try and do downs at 120 and it's two per click, eighth notes, and it works, and then you try and flip it over and do down ups at 120, it might work great for you, but it might feel a little bit slow to you. And if it does, speed up the metronome. Okay? And figure out what's going to work. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump this up to 160, which would be kind of cooking if I was doing downs, right? Here's downs. So that's a little bit faster if I was doing downs, but I'm going to do down ups. You see? So I've got to start developing the speed, and this is something very, very important too, is I need to be aware of the tempos at which I'm practicing these things. I need to write this down. I might need to have a notebook, God forbid, right? Where I write this down. My 2-minute drill is at this tempo. Okay? My down picking 2-minute drill. My alternate picking drill is at this tempo. Okay? That's okay. Again, ideally, at some point in your world, if my down picking, let's go back to 150. If my down picking was here, in an ideal world, my alternate picking would be twice as fast. You see that? That's what I want. At some point, whatever speed I can down pick at, I want to be able to alternate pick, which sends again, I'm doing 2 per click when I'm doing downs, which is eighth notes. If I double it by adding those ups in between, I'm then playing what we call 16th notes, which is 4 per click. So we think the click is here, and I'm doing, there's 2 per click. If I start doing this, now I'm doing 4 per click, you see? But that doesn't mean in an ideal world, that's where you are right now. But that's what would be perfect to be able to do, is whatever speed you can do downs at, you can do down ups at that same speed. In the beginning, that may not be the case. You might have to do your downs at 120 and your down ups at 160 because they're just not really ready yet. You haven't developed that yet, and that's okay. You just keep practicing those over and over and over, and eventually they're going to start kind of trying to merge together. But just think about that so you know. Because if the other thing to remember about alternate picking, especially if you want to learn to play faster, is that alternate picking doesn't only have the capability of going twice as fast as your downs. It can go faster than your downs. And I always use the analogy of your legs. If you went outside and you tried to just run on one leg, if you just tried to run around on your right leg, and then you start running on both legs, you will run a lot faster with both legs than you could on one leg. It's not like one leg is getting you at this speed, and then you use both legs and now you're going twice as fast. You could go way faster with both legs. Well, the same thing happens here. As you start dialing in this, just machine ability of being able to just barely pick that string and just fire off against there, you can learn to go really, really fast. Okay. But you've got to develop it first. And then always remind yourself that when you're doing alternate picking, it's not always going to be that fast, even if you could play that fast. Because the other problem that I find a lot of times with students is that they learn how to play really fast, but they can't do it slower. Like sometimes those mid-tempo, which you're going to find when you do these exercises, sometimes when you do those mid-tempo exercises, it's actually harder to go slower than it is to go faster. Okay? But in the real world, not everything's going to be that fast. Sometimes you're going to play songs that are a little bit slower, and you've got to learn to develop that technique at a little bit slower pace. Okay? So these are great things that you can do to try and develop that picking.